Hi, Facebook. I'm Fallon Saldo, broadcasting from the Northampton office of Keller Williams. I'm here today with Josh Hilsdon of PV Squared Solar Energy out of Greenfield, Massachusetts. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing quite well this morning.
Great. That's good to hear. Could you please tell me a little bit about your company and how you got into solar energy?
Sure.
Yeah.
So PV Squared Solar is a Greenfield, Massachusetts-based design and installation company, and we specialize in solar electric systems, or sometimes called photovoltaic.
Okay.
So our name PV Squared comes from photovoltaic Pioneer Valley. So Pioneer Valley Photovoltaic is our full name.
Wow.
We short it PVPV. You get two PVs, you square it, PV Squared.
Interesting.
It's kind of a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, but as I was traveling on Google and saw PV when it related to solar, I understand now how you got the two.
Exactly. So PV Squared Solar, you can call us, and we've been installing solar electric systems since 2002. So we're now in our 16th year in business.
Wow.
Which makes us the old kids on the block for solar.
Yes.
And our company employs about 40-odd people.
Okay.
And about half of those people are also owners of the company.
Okay.
And that's because we're structured as a worker-owned cooperative.
Nice.
Yeah. And so for anyone who doesn't know what a cooperative is, it means that in this case, a worker-owned cooperative means that the workers in the business also own the business. So we're a democratically controlled workplace. I, along with about half my colleagues, are owners of the business. And everyone who works at PV Squared has an opportunity to become an owner over time and through investing in the business.
That's great.
So I think what that means for our customers is that they're dealing with people who have a long-term commitment to the reputation of the business, and that shows up in our workmanship and the way that we treat our customers and interact with the community, and also how we're able to retain people for a long period of time. So when you can hold on to your workers, you get really skilled workers who bring a lot of that to the job every day.
Now tell me a little bit about you. How did you get into this company?
Sure. Yeah. So I had a background in environmental studies in college. I was very concerned about the environment, and particularly the climate situation with greenhouse gas emissions causing global warming. So I knew that.
So that does exist.
Yes, quite definitively. And you know, in the years since I was in school, the situation has only gotten more stark. So I knew that coming out of school, I wanted my career to be about doing something about climate change. And it seemed like energy, and particularly renewables, would be a key way that I could make some progress there. So after working in energy efficiency and in political activism around climate change, I sort of wound my way to solar in 2010.
Okay.
And 2010 is when you really start seeing more and more solar being deployed. So if you look at a graph of the rate of solar deployment in the U.S. in particular, 2010 is when you really start to see those numbers tick up. So I was entering the workforce right at that time as solar was really taking off.
Great.
And you know, working as an installer, working as a project manager, and through residential design and sales. These days I primarily focus on commercial design and sales, but our PV Squared's design and sales team is a really close-knit group of folks working on all scales of projects, from residential to the bigger commercial.
That's great. It's always good to see somebody that knows everything from the ground floor. You have a great, large perspective of what's going on. Yeah,
that installation experience I had was priceless because when I visit a home to assess for solar, I can think not only as the salesperson, but also as the person who would actually come and install it.
Of course.
And make sure those designs are very elegant and well laid out and are going to work out in the field.
And as someone that sees these installed, it's always nice to have somebody that's thinking in a designer's way about the home itself and how it will appear.
Aesthetics do matter, something we take very seriously.
They really do. So let's jump in.
Sure.
How do solar panels work?
Sure. So the solar panels that we'll be talking about are solar photovoltaic panels. They make electricity from sunlight.
Yes.
And basically the energy in the sun energizes electrons in the solar panel and causes those electrons to move, and they flow through wires. And on a residential system, typically that's going to flow into the home's electrical service. So if you have your circuit breaker panel in the basement, that's where all of the appliances in your homes draw their power from.
Yes.
And solar can feed electricity directly into that and distribute that electricity out to run your fridge or your air conditioner or what have you.
That still amazes me. A question that comes up often is, what happens to a solar panel on a cloudy or rainy day?
Sure. So they do run on the sun, and if you block the sun, their performance is either going to drop to zero on a fully rainy or fully snowy day, or it's going to be somewhere between what it's theoretically capable of and what it's, it's going to respond to the environmental conditions at that moment.
Sure.
So one of the things that we say about solar is that it's variable production, but if you step back from the day-to-day variability of it, you can predict pretty accurately what it'll do over the course of a year.
Good.
So we know a lot about long-term weather patterns for our climate and for every climate in the world.
Yes.
And so you can take that weather data and use it to come up with a pretty accurate prediction of how much electricity the system will produce over the year, even if you can't say what it would produce from day to day.
So it's good. It takes the guesswork out a little bit.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
How does a person clean a solar panel? How does the person that has them on their home clean it?
So in New England, we're very lucky with lots of rain, and typically the rain is going to do the work for you.
Nice.
If you live in the desert or a really dry, dusty place, you might need to do more washing.
Yes.
But in New England, we get kind of a pass here, and we really don't have to clean our solar panels that often.
Yes.
In certain kinds of installations where they may be getting like a lot of dust and silt or on a flat roof, they could benefit from annual or biennial washing. But on a typical residential pitched system, that rain is going to do a really good job of clearing any kind of pollen or soot off of them over time.
Would you recommend that a resident get up and clean them, or is it a third-party company that you would say would come in if they had to be?
Safety first with everything. If one was determined to wash their solar panels, you would need to make sure you're doing it with equipment that was not going to scratch or abrade the surface of the panel, the glass coating or the metal frame, and you would need to do it in a way that prioritized your own safety. So given those considerations, we don't recommend it for most people, but if you've got, a ground-mounted system or a really accessible, walkable roof, you could probably do a decent job with a mop and a bucket.
Yeah.
But yeah, we say just sit back and let them work and make it easy on yourself.
Now, for the homeowners out there and the home buyers out there, how would a person get a system on their property?
Sure. So PV Squared, for example, works with people, anyone who reaches out to us through our website, pvsquared.coop, or phones us, 413-772-8788. Can get a free solar consultation where our design and sales team members will talk with you over the phone. We'll learn about your situation. We'll explain how solar works to you. And if it sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, we'll actually come out and do a solar site assessment where we look closely at your property, at your building, figure out the best place for panels, and we go back to our office, we come up with a design, and we provide you with a proposal. And it includes a lot of information about, what kind of panels, where the panels will be, how much electricity it'll generate, how much it'll cost. And from there, people can simply contract with us, just like you would contract someone to put a new roof on your house or put in a new boiler. We're essentially a home improvement contractor for solar. And for business.
Very good. There you go. And so, do you also? Isn't the part the town has to sign off on at the end? Is that something that you do, or is that something?
Sure. Yeah. So building permits are required for all solar installations, as well as electrical permits. So part of our initial first scope of work, when you first pay us, we usually ask for a $500 deposit, is to go out and get building permits, which means doing structural engineering work to make sure the roof can support solar, and getting electrical permits to be able to do that work. And I'll note that solar has to be installed by licensed electricians. So PV Squared is a licensed electrical contractor. That is our licensure to do work, and you should always work with a licensed electrical contractor.
And most things that we do in real estate as well, we recommend, we advise that you have a licensed professional at your home. Which type of system would you recommend?
So PV Squared focuses on solar electric systems. There are also solar thermal systems, which use the sun to heat water or refrigerant. And that is about heating hot water for your home, domestic hot water for your home. But the type that we focus on is solar electric, which makes electricity. And so that's what we recommend for folks. And then the nuance is really, how much solar do you need? Do you need 8 panels or do you need 40 panels? And what kind of panels are we installing? So there's different grades of solar panels. Some produce more electricity from the same amount of area, and others produce less. So higher efficiency panels versus more standard efficiency panels.
Yes.
We tend to do a lot of work with high efficiency panels.
Yes.
And so that would be, I think, our primary recommendation for most people is, particularly if you're looking at a roof, you only have one roof. You get one chance to put high quality equipment on that roof, and this equipment can last for 25 years.
Wow.
So you're allocating that precious solar resource, and usually want to put really high quality equipment there to make the most electricity from that limited space.
Now, this high equipment that you're talking about, what does this cost? Would you say in a range?
Sure. Yeah. So our projects have a price range roughly equivalent for residential systems to what you might see if you go out to buy a car.
Okay.
Right. So at the low end, you're talking teens of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
And at the high end, you could buy a luxury vehicle for like $75,000.
Yes.
Most projects might be in a $20,000 to $60,000 kind of a price range.
Yes.
And the big determinant there is how many panels you're buying and what type of racking you have. So a roof mount versus a ground mount, 8 panels versus 40 panels. And those upfront costs of systems are always big numbers, and they always knock people out. And so it's really important to learn about how you get that money back over time.
Yes.
And the multiple forms of assistance that both the state and the federal government offer to help you recoup that money.
Yes, this is a car that you're buying that actually brings money back into your household versus depreciating the second you drive off the lot.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
You're
so
welcome.
when you buy a solar energy system, what you're buying is a power plant.
Yes.
And because you don't have to pay for sunlight, the fuel for that power plant is free.
Yes.
So the total cost of the system is in the original purchase and installation price.
Yes.
So it's like you're pre-buying 30 years worth of electricity.
Yes.
And you're paying for it all at once.
Yes.
Because of that, we look at pretty big sticker prices for solar. So I don't want to suggest to anyone that these systems are, very low cost. There's a substantial investment.
Yes, there is.
But it's very much worth it, and I'll be happy to get, more into the economics and the incentives and how that all works.
Yeah, and that brings us to my next question, which is, we've all heard about solar paying for itself.
Sure.
Could you explain that to my audience and to the people at home?
Yeah, of course. So I would never suggest that there's such a thing as free solar. Solar systems cost money to purchase the equipment, to install, to make sure you're doing all the permitting and long-term service work. The way that solar pays for itself, though, is 3 different avenues. The first and most important is it saves you money that you would otherwise pay the utility.
True.
So normally we all pay a power bill. You write a check every month to National Grid or to Wamico, Eversource, and that is money that leaves your pocketbook every month. And with solar, we're reducing or eliminating your bill. So we're keeping more money in your pocket. That's a savings stream. It's money you don't have to pay the utility because you use that money to buy a solar array.
Yeah.
So that's the first and most important one. That's going to go on for decades, right, of system life. Once you're pre-buying all that power for decades to come.
Yes.
The second one and third one has to do with the way that the state and federal government help support solar.
Okay.
So the federal government has an investment tax credit that's equal to 30% of the system cost.
Wow.
So if you were to spend $30,000 on a solar project, not an uncommon amount to invest in solar, you would receive $9,000 back as a federal income tax credit.
Okay.
So 30% of the system cost comes back to you really quickly as a tax credit when you pay your taxes.
And that's in the next fiscal year.
It's the next tax filing.
Okay.
Right? So for me, when I bought my system for $33,000,
yes,
I got a $10,000 tax credit back when I paid my taxes.
Nice.
And that was actually a refund because taxes had been withheld from my paychecks throughout the year. So I was paying those taxes all year.
Yes.
So when it came time to file my taxes, I had this great solar tax credit, and the IRS simply sent me that money right back and said, here you go, here's your $10,000 back.
Wow.
So that's a really good feeling the day you get a $10,000 check from the IRS.
Oh, absolutely. I can agree.
And then
go ahead, continue,
I'll go on to say that the state of Massachusetts has also done a lot to support solar. And we, in addition, have state incentive programs which help to offset those costs of solar.
Yes.
And so the state incentive program pays you as your system produces electricity.
Okay.
So on a month when you produce a lot of electricity, you get a bigger incentive payment versus a month when you produce less electricity. But over the course of a year, you can predict what those incentives are going to be really well.
And are those indefinitely, or do they shift as policy changes in the state? How does that work?
Sure. So the first thing I'll say is when you qualify into an incentive program, you're going to qualify for a given time frame.
Okay.
And that's typically 10 years.
All right.
So you're getting those incentive payments for 10 years.
All right.
The second thing I'll say is that once you're qualified into an incentive program, you're locked into that program. Even if the program changes moving forward, you've been grandfathered into the program that you qualified into.
Excellent.
Right. So we're seeing this happening now with a lot of people who have been getting what are called SRECs, or Solar Renewable Energy Certificates.
Okay.
That program is changing. It has a new name. Under the hood, it's really pretty similar.
Yeah.
And now it's called SMART, Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target.
Okay.
And it's the same basic idea. As your system produces electricity, you get cash payments for that. And this is based on the state having a policy of seeing more renewables, more clean, sustainable solar electricity. And that's a goal that the state has to every year have more solar feeding into the grid. So more and more clean energy. And the way that they achieve that goal is by offering home and business owners the opportunity to put these systems up on their own buildings, and then offering them this cash incentive to help sort of sweeten that deal.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And on top of all of that, you're doing good things for the environment.
Absolutely. So, underlying the reason that I'm at the table today, and many people at PV Squared are at the table, is that this is electricity that's produced without greenhouse gas emissions. It's produced silently, which if you're a homeowner is a blessed thing.
Yes.
And no air pollution. So an incredibly elegant, simple way to produce electricity with no pollution from the sun.
I'm Fallon Saldo at Keller Williams Realty. I'm a local realtor. This is John Hilsdon with PV Squared. How can the public get in touch with you?
Sure. So PV Squared has a website, of course, PV Squared, SQUARED .coop, COOP, and that's because we're a cooperative business. So pvsquared.coop is our website.
Yes.
We've got an intake email. You can write to us. We'll get right back in touch with you. You can request a free solar consultation and site assessment. And that's really the best way to get a hold of us, unless you are old school and you want to call, in which case you can do so at 413-772-8788.
And if you know anyone looking to buy or sell their property, you can contact me, 413-923-4024. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody, have a great day. Thank you. Cheers.